Okay, for bread and butterflies, you take your Sculpey clay. If you've watched any of the other videos, it's Sculpey clay from AC Moore, and it bakes for 15 minutes at 275. And for my bread and butterflies, I take a big clump of clay, as big as you want your butterflies. What's a little difficult about the bread and butterflies is the way that you have to make the top of the bread. So don't be afraid to make the beginning of it a bit smaller and squished together than it is, or what was it, like longer than you really want it, because, oh, I know, I was right the first time. So you're making a like rectangle type thing, like a little block, and if you want to make a whole flock of bread and butterflies, you want to make sure that the ends are rounded. So it looks like this. And then take whatever you're using and just make a slit down the center. Not all the way through, just through the top. This is supposed to be the top of the bread loaf. Then pull that apart a little bit. And then you want to smooth out the center so that it doesn't look like it just got cut apart. Now when you're done with that, try and make the top rounded. And you can push them back together, sort of. But now they're going to have that crease in between them. And then for the outside of it, just push in with your finger to make that dent. And then you can kind of roll the clay over onto your finger to define it a little bit. Now, what I used to cut apart the bread and butterflies from their loaf of bread was a cheese slicer. It's got this little wire on it that slices cheese normally very nicely. You can most likely use a egg cutter that you can get from the dollar store, and I don't know if you'd want to possibly take off a couple of the springs first before doing it. So I just do this and slice it through, and when you're doing it you want to pull up on the clay a little bit, because if you don't, it takes the clay down with it and it makes your bread and butterflies slanted and off. You can make them as thick or as thin as you want. Just make sure that you keep 2 and 2 together. Like, see what happens when it doesn't get held right? How it's off. So, that would normally be a bad thing, so I'm just going to fix that a little bit. Pull up and slice down. So that is one set of wings for the first bread and butterfly. And you want to keep them together, that way you know that they match. And just keep on slicing through until the end. Like, the first time I attempted at this, I just kept on doing this. And see what happens. Not very nice. So that is how you start with your bread and butterfly. And then to make the body, you just pretty much make worms. So you just make a worm, and then you only have to worry about their eyes and their nose. So for their eyes, I tried to clump up as many balls as I could, the same size for each of them, if you're making a flock of them like I did. So you want to make sure all your balls are the same size for their eyes so that they don't all come out looking different shapes and weird. So then you take the ball after you're finished getting all your balls for the eyes, and you take them apart and you make sure that they're the same size when you part them, and you kind of make them little bean shapes. And then just stick them together. And then for the nose, you just take a small bit, roll it into a ball, and then pinch it. When you pinch it, it makes like a sunflower seed shape. And then just stick that on the underneath of their eyes, and their face is done. Now, when I did my bread and butterflies, I didn't put them together until I was done with the baking. So when you're doing it, you're going to have the wings like that, and however you want their body to look. I bent mine a little bit so that it looked like this. And then just stick your eyes up like that. And once they're done drying, you paint them, and after you're done painting them, then use hot glue on them to stick their wings onto their bodies. Because if you try and put them together, you're not going to be able to get them to stay like this. If you put them in the oven, they're going to do this. Or this. And it just makes it easier than to have to hold on to the eyeballs. So that is generally what the bread and butterfly looks like before it's cooked. If you want them to be on a mobile like what I did, then you need to get jewelry rings. They're jewelry links, and you just stick it down into the center of his back, so that when you're done with it, you can just stick clear string through them, and they'll stay on the mobile. The top of my mobile I got from a Dollar General store. It was actually a wind chime for $5. So I just took the top of a wind chime ring and turned it into the top of my mobile. And that is how you make a bread and butterfly.